Take a deep breath and picture our oceans. They cover over 70% of our world, a seemingly infinite expanse of blue that holds more mysteries than the stars themselves. It is a world teeming with wonders, from the majestic ballet of a blue whale to the intricate, fragile architecture of a coral reef bustling with a million tiny lives. For billions of years, this has been the cradle of life, the gentle, nurturing womb from which all complexity on our planet has emerged. We look at its surface and see tranquility, a timeless constant in our chaotic world. We feel a connection to it, a primal pull to the source of all we are. But have you ever stopped to wonder how fragile that tranquility really is? We talk about climate change in terms of subtle shifts, a degree here, a degree there. We debate rising sea levels measured in centimeters. But what happens if we push past the tipping point? What if the delicate balance that keeps our planet habitable suddenly and irrevocably shatters? Imagine a future where our comfortable climate spirals out of control, where a runaway greenhouse effect takes hold, and the Earth begins to cook under its own atmospheric blanket. What happens when the very cradle of life becomes a cauldron? It's a scenario straight out of science fiction, a vision of hell that feels a million years away. But what if it isn't? Let's allow ourselves to imagine this unthinkable world for a moment. Picture standing on a coastline, not feeling a cool sea breeze, but a blast of scalding steam that scorches your lungs. The sky above isn't blue, but a hazy, permanent orange-red, filtering a weak, sickly light onto a world devoid of color. The waves don't crash with a soothing rhythm. They heave and boil, rolling onto barren, salt-encrusted rock where no plant can grow. This isn't just a warmer ocean. It's a fundamentally different state of matter, a planet-wide geothermal feature where the average surface temperature of the water approaches its boiling point. Life as we know it, which depends on a narrow, fragile temperature band, would simply cease to be. In this simmering, global abyss, the entire food web would be annihilated in an instant. Photosynthesis, the engine of nearly all life on Earth, would be impossible. The phytoplankton, the microscopic forests of the sea that produce most of our oxygen, would be sterilized into oblivion. The great whales, the playful dolphins, the billions of fish, crabs, and corals would be gone, their passing marked only by a brief, terrible silence. Would this be it? Would the Earth, after 4 billion years of vibrant, explosive evolution, finally fall silent? Could anything possibly survive in a world where the oceans themselves are actively trying to boil them alive? Or would this be the final, undisputed extinction? It is the ultimate question, a mystery that touches on the very definition of life itself. The thought of such a complete and total planetary death is a unique kind of horror, an unnerving silence that stretches into eternity. We instinctively want to believe that life is resilient, that it finds a way. But this scenario seems to defy that comforting notion entirely. It feels like a definitive, absolute end. Yet, the answer to this terrifying question is more shocking and stranger than you can possibly imagine. Because the blueprint for survival in this boiling hellscape isn't hidden in some far-flung future. It's here, right now, thriving in the darkest, most violent corners of our own world, waiting for its time. This impossible future, in some ways, has already begun. So, how could anything possibly survive in a boiling ocean? The logical, rational part of our brain insists that it's impossible. But life is infinitely more stubborn, and frankly, more bizarre than we often give it credit for. To find the blueprint for this impossible survival, we don't need a time machine to journey into a desolate future. We just need a submarine, an incredibly robust vessel built to withstand pressures that would crumple a military tank like a paper cup. Our journey takes us down, miles below the sunlit surface, into a realm of crushing blackness and profound cold. It is a world without light, a world of immense weight, and a world we once thought was a barren desert. But it's here, in this eternal night, that humanity found something that tore up the rulebook of biology. In 1977, while exploring a deep-sea ridge near the Galapagos Islands, scientists stumbled upon a geological feature that should not have existed, surrounded by an ecosystem that could not exist. They found towering, chimney-like structures, some as tall as office buildings, billowing what looked like thick, black smoke into the frigid seawater. These weren't plumes of ash. They were hydrothermal vents, furious geysers of superheated, mineral-rich fluid blasting directly from beneath the Earth's crust. This water, emerging from so-called black smokers, can reach temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. It's a landscape of absolute darkness, unimaginable pressure, and water laced with toxic chemicals like hydrogen sulfide, the poison that gives rotten eggs their infamous stench. By all accounts, this place should be as sterile and lifeless as the vacuum of space. And yet, it wasn't. It was, against all logic, completely alive. Clustered around these hellish fountains was a dense forest of pale, white tubes, some growing taller than a person. From the opening of each tube extended a shocking, vibrant, blood-red plume, swaying rhythmically in the chemical-laden currents. These were giant tube worms, Riftia pachyptila, creatures so profoundly alien they seemed to mock our understanding of life itself. They had no eyes, which made sense in the total darkness. But a closer examination revealed something far more disturbing, a biological impossibility. The worms had no mouth, no stomach, no gut or digestive system of any kind. How can a complex animal possibly live and grow if it has no way to eat? The mystery of the mouthless worm led to one of the most revolutionary discoveries in modern science, a finding that fundamentally changed our perception of what life requires to exist. The answer, it turned out, wasn't on the worm, but inside it. Their bodies are packed with trillions of symbiotic bacteria, microscopic partners that perform a dark miracle called chemosynthesis. Instead of using sunlight for energy like plants, these bacteria harness the raw chemical energy from the toxic hydrogen sulfide pouring out of the vents. The worm's bright red plume acts like a specialized lung, absorbing both oxygen from seawater and the sulfide poison from the vent, delivering these ingredients to its bacterial passengers. The bacteria then convert these into sugars, feeding both themselves and their giant living home. It is life without a single photon of sunlight, powered by the raw geothermal heart of the Earth. And the worms are not alone. This is a complete, thriving ecosystem, a bustling metropolis of monsters. Crawling among them is the scaly-foot snail, a creature that builds its shell not from calcium, but from iron sulfide, literally fool's gold. It wears a flexible suit of metallic armor, making it one of the only known animals to use iron in its skeleton, likely as a defense against the corrosive, sulfur-rich water. Lurking nearby is the Yeti crab, a ghostly white crustacean that seems to have hairy arms. That hair is actually a forest of bristles where the crab carefully cultivates or farms its own personal colonies of chemosynthetic bacteria, which it then scrapes off and consumes. It's a farmer, tending its crops in the eternal, crushing night of the abyss. Take a moment to truly absorb what this means. These creatures are not just fascinating oddities. They are a profound message sent from our own planet's hidden interior. They are living proof that life does not need the warmth and light of the sun. Life can be forged in pressure that would kill us instantly, in total darkness, and in a toxic chemical bath that should sterilize everything it touches. These ecosystems are isolated pockets of an alien world that has existed, hidden from us, for eons. They prove that the biological rulebook we thought was absolute is, at best, a rough draft. But for now, these are just small, scattered islands in a vast, cold ocean. So, what would happen if the conditions here were no longer the exception, but the rule? The extremophiles of our deep oceans are a testament to life's tenacity, thriving in pockets of what we would consider hell. They exist on the very edge of possibility. But we left them with a crucial, unsettling question. What would happen if their extreme world was no longer the exception, but the new global standard? Let us return to our terrifying future, a world pushed past its limits. The slow, creeping thermometer of climate change has finally shattered its glass casing. The feedback loops have been triggered. The runaway greenhouse effect is no longer a distant theory but a terrifying, unfolding reality. This is the moment of the Great Boiling, a planetary fever from which there is no recovery. The first to perish are the invisible architects of our world. The phytoplankton, those countless trillions of microscopic organisms that float in the sunlit upper layers of the ocean, are instantly sterilized. Imagine the very air you breathe thinning out, as the source of over half the planet's oxygen is snuffed out in a geological heartbeat. The color of the seas shifts from vibrant blue to a sickly, soupy green, then a murky brown, as quadrillions of dead cells cloud the water. This isn't just a loss of life. It's the disconnection of the planetary life support system. The sun still shines, but its energy can no longer be transformed into life. It is now only a source of relentless, destructive heat. Next, the great cities of the ocean crumble. The coral reefs, those vibrant, bustling metropolises of biodiversity, are boiled alive. The process of bleaching, which today happens over weeks or months, is accelerated into a violent, instantaneous event. The delicate polyps are cooked, their symbiotic algae expelled in a final, colorful death gasp, before the coral skeletons themselves, unable to withstand the increasingly acidic and superheated water, begin to dissolve. They crumble into a pale, lifeless sludge, erasing millennia of growth in a matter of years. The world's kelp forests, those towering underwater sequoias, are similarly scalded, turning into limp, rotting strands that are torn apart by the churning, superheated currents. The very structure of the marine world is being unwritten. And then comes the silence, the great silence, the final, heart-wrenching phase of the extinction. The creatures we know and love, the fish, the sharks, the turtles, the great whales, have nowhere left to run. We can imagine vast schools of fish, confused and panicked, rising to the surface, only to be seared in the boiling upper layers. We can picture the last whales, their ancient songs replaced by cries of distress, as they desperately beach themselves in a futile attempt to escape their scalding home. For a time, the oceans would be a graveyard, filled with the ghostly shapes of the dead drifting in the currents. Then, even that would be gone as everything is reduced to its constituent molecules. The clicks of dolphins, the songs of humpbacks, the simple sound of a billion creatures moving through the water. All of it is replaced by the monotonous, sterile hiss of steam and bubbling water. The Earth's oceans have fallen silent for the first time in over 500 million years. But as the old world dies in the light, a new one is being forged in the darkness. Let's dive, far below the silent, boiling surface, down into the crushing abyss. Here, the story is not one of death, but of violent, chaotic birth. The same runaway geothermal energy that is cooking the planet from the outside is now supercharging it from within. The ocean floor, once a place of slow, gradual change, is now racked with tectonic fury. New hydrothermal vents, 1,000 times more powerful than the ones we know today, are tearing open across the seafloor. Planet-wide fissures are ripping through the crust, spewing unbelievable volumes of heat and minerals into the deep. The agent of destruction on the surface has become an all-powerful engine of creation in the abyss. For the 99% of life that worshipped the sun, this was the undisputed apocalypse. But for that 1%, for the extremophiles who were born in fire and weaned on poison, this was not an ending. It was a beginning. It was a planetary liberation. The tight, restrictive boundaries of their little pockets of existence have just been obliterated. The entire ocean floor is now becoming their perfect habitat. The chemical soup they need to survive is no longer a localized resource but a global abundance. The great silence on the surface was merely the quiet before the storm, a prelude to a new, ferocious roar from the deep. As the water slowly cleared over millennia, a new world, bathed not in sunlight but in the dim, angry glow of geothermal heat, began to take shape, and with it utterly new forms of life. Out of the ashes of the old world, a new genesis has begun. Millennia have passed since the Great Silence, and the Earth's oceans are unrecognizable. The concept of a sunlit surface world is a forgotten memory, a ghost of a dead paradigm. Down here in the eternal dark, life has been rewritten from its most fundamental principles. The foundation of this new world isn't built on sunlight, but on sulfur. Imagine vast, undulating landscapes covering the ocean floor, stretching for thousands of kilometers. These are not fields of grass, but continent-sized mats of chemosynthetic bacteria. In the faint, eerie glow of countless hydrothermal fissures, they shimmer with a strange, otherworldly iridescence. A living carpet that draws its energy directly from the planet's molten heart. This is the new primordial soup, and the first forms of complex life are now emerging to feast upon it. Behold the grazers of this alien prairie. Slowly, methodically, they move across the bacterial plains, their immense forms glinting in the geothermal haze. These are the magma snails, the direct descendants of the humble scalyfoot snail we met earlier. But evolution, now supercharged by the new abundance of energy, has granted them titanic proportions. They are now the size of large dinner plates, their bodies protected by a thick, layered shell of interlocking iron sulfide plates. This metallic armor, far stronger than their ancestors, is a necessary adaptation to a world of even greater pressures and more intense heat. They are the gentle giants of this new era, the slow-moving lawnmowers of the abyssal plains, converting the raw chemical energy of the bacterial mats into living flesh. But where there are grazers, there will eventually be hunters. In any ecosystem, the evolution of a predator is an inevitability. But how would a hunter operate in this environment? Think about the challenges. It's a world of absolute, permanent darkness, so eyes are completely useless. The water is a turbulent, churning soup of minerals and heat, rendering any sense of smell or taste hopelessly confused. Sound, while it travels well in water, would be drowned out by the constant, deafening roar of geothermal vents and underwater volcanoes. So how do you find your prey when you can't see it, can't smell it, and can't hear it? How does a killer stalk its victim when all the traditional senses have been rendered obsolete? Evolution, in its relentless creativity, would need to invent an entirely new way to perceive the world. And so it did. Uncoiling from the murky darkness is a creature of pure, streamlined menace. The thermal stalker. Superficially, it resembles a large, muscular eel, its skin a pale, featureless white. But the most unsettling thing about it is its face. It has none. There are no eyes, no nostrils, just a powerful, gaping maw. The secret lies along the length of its body. Running from head to tail are two parallel rows of small, dark depressions. These are not decorative markings. They are hypersensitive thermal pits, biological sensors of exquisite precision. These pits allow the stalker to perceive the world not as light, but as a detailed, three-dimensional map of heat. In a world of uniform background temperature, any living thing with its metabolism and internal warmth would stand out like a blazing torch. For the thermal stalker, the world is a masterpiece of thermal art. The background environment is a cool, dark canvas. The geothermal vents are roaring columns of white-hot light, and the magma snails, with their slow but steady metabolic processes, glow like bright, tempting lanterns in the dark. We can picture the hunt now, a scene of silent, calculated horror. A magma snail grazes, oblivious, its body a beacon of warmth. From the gloom, the thermal stalker approaches, a ghost in the water. It doesn't need to see the snail's shell. It sees the heat signature of the living flesh inside. It moves with fluid, serpentine grace, closing the distance without a sound. The final attack is a blur of motion, a silent, terrifying lunge from the darkness, guided by a sense that is utterly alien and lethally effective. This terrifying dance between the snail and the stalker is not just a single, isolated event. It is the core engine of this new biosphere. A new food web, complex and brutal, has been woven together in the darkness, fueled entirely by the Earth's internal fire. Grazers consume the bacterial mats, and predators hunt the grazers. We are witnessing the birth of a complete, self-sustaining ecosystem that owes absolutely nothing to the sun. It is a testament to life's ability to not just survive, but to innovate and build complexity in the most hostile conditions imaginable. But this is just the beginning of the hierarchy. Every ecosystem, no matter how alien, eventually develops a chain of command. And at the very top of this new, dark world, something far larger and far more powerful was beginning to evolve. A creature that would dwarf everything that came before it. The dark, boiling abyss now has its own brutal rhythm of life and death. The silent, metallic magma snails graze on bacterial fields, and the ghostly thermal stalkers hunt them through a world of heat signatures. A new food web has been established, a stable cycle of chemical energy flowing from the planet's core up through predator and prey. But in the grand theater of evolution, the stage is never static for long. Soon, signs would emerge that the thermal stalker, the phantom killer of the deep, was not at the top of this new food chain. Entire packs of stalkers would vanish without a trace. Vast regions of the bacterial mats would be scoured clean by something far larger than a herd of snails. Strange, colossal thermal shadows would momentarily blot out the light of entire vent fields, leaving behind only a chilling silence and a lingering disturbance in the water. Imagine you are a thermal stalker, the perfect predator in this world. Your senses paint a picture of reality that is flawless, a symphony of heat that alerts you to every living thing. And yet, one day the symphony warps. A pressure wave, immense and powerful, rolls through the deep, strong enough to momentarily stun you. The background heat signature of the world dims, as if a mountain has just moved in front of a distant star. You turn your senses toward the anomaly, and what you perceive is incomprehensible. It is a presence so vast, so thermally immense, that it doesn't register as a single being. It is a moving cold spot, a void in the heat of the world, a living eclipse that is heading directly your way. You are the hunter, but you are now the hunted. Out of the deepest, darkest trenches emerges the apex predator of this new earth, the geyser Leviathan. This is no sleek hunter. It is a moving fortress, a behemoth of unimaginable scale and power, descended from some forgotten, deep-sea armored fish that survived the great boiling. Evolution has bestowed upon it a truly monstrous form. Its body, the length of a blue whale, is covered not in scales but in thick, overlapping plates of bioceramic armor, fused with minerals absorbed from the vent water. This dense plating makes it virtually indestructible, allowing it to withstand both the colossal pressure of the abyss and the direct, searing heat of the magma vents it calls home. Its face is a terrifying relic, with two small, milky white eyes, long since rendered blind and useless, set above a jaw that could swallow a submersible whole. But its physical size and armor are not what make the Leviathan the undisputed king of this realm. Its true power, its evolutionary masterstroke, is a biological weapon of terrifying ingenuity. Deep within its armored chest cavity, it has evolved a specialized organ, a kind of organic pressure vessel with incredibly strong, muscle-lined walls. The creature can approach the most violent black smokers, open its maw, and carefully ingest the superheated, mineral-rich water, funneling it directly into this internal bladder. Muscles clamp down, sealing the chamber and holding the water at a temperature and pressure that would vaporize any lesser organism from the inside out. It essentially loads a cannon, turning the very thing that defines its deadly environment into ammunition. And now we see the hunt's conclusion. The Leviathan, having detected a group of thermal stalkers with its own vastly superior thermal senses, glides through the abyss. It is a creature of impossible grace for its size, a silent mountain on the move. The stalkers, perhaps alerted at the last moment, scatter in panic, but there is nowhere to hide. The Leviathan singles out its target, its body subtly adjusting its aim. Then, a massive, convulsive shudder runs through its frame as the muscles around its internal bladder contract with phenomenal force. A perfectly focused jet of water, superheated to over 400 degrees Celsius, erupts from a specialized nozzle beneath its jaw. It's not a clumsy blast, but a coherent, liquid spear that travels dozens of meters in an instant. The targeted stalker is flash-boiled, its tissues cooked in a split second. The attack is utterly silent, brutally efficient, and undeniably final. The Leviathan drifts forward, calmly consuming its kill. This creature, a monster that would fuel our worst nightmares, is the ultimate expression of life's ferocious will to continue. It is not an aberration or a freak of nature. It is the logical endpoint of evolution in a world powered by geothermal rage. The terror it inspires is simply the visceral human reaction to a form of life that has no need for us, no need for our sun, and which operates by a set of rules we find horrifying. But there is also a profound, terrifying beauty in its existence. It is the new king, the behemoth of the boiling deep, a silent, armored monarch ruling over a dark, violent, and eternal kingdom. We have witnessed the crowning of a new king, the Geyser Leviathan, a creature of impossible scale and terrifying power, now reigns supreme in the boiling abyss. It is the apex of a new, dark pyramid of life, a perfectly adapted monarch for a kingdom of pressure and fire. For a moment, we are lost in awe and horror at this single, magnificent being. But now it's time to pull back, to zoom out from the dark, violent world of the ocean floor, past the boiling surface, through the thick, steamy atmosphere, until we see our planet as a solitary sphere hanging in the blackness of space. What has Earth become? What does our home look like now that it belongs to them? From this distance, the world we knew is gone. The familiar, comforting swirls of white clouds are still there, but they are denser, thicker, and tinged with the sulfurous haze of a billion volcanic vents. The continents are barren, baked brown and red, scoured of all recognizable life by the extreme heat and the loss of the old atmosphere. And the oceans are the most profound change. Gone are the vibrant, shifting blues and greens. They are now a uniform, deep, and menacing black, a single dark ocean that betrays none of the ferocious activity within. If you were to watch for a while, especially on the night side, you might see it. Faint, ghostly glows that pulse and shift beneath the waves. It's not the light of cities. It is the light of the Earth's own inner fire, the immense geothermal hotspots, now visible from space through the dark water. The planet is glowing from within. This new biosphere, ruled by the Leviathan and fueled by chemosynthesis, is profoundly different from the one it replaced. Our world was a creature of the sun. It was fast, energetic, vibrant, but also fragile, utterly dependent on a stable star, a clear atmosphere, and a precise orbital distance. This new world is slow, deliberate, and ponderous. Its energy source isn't a distant, fickle star, but the planet's own inexhaustible core, a furnace that will burn for billions of years. In a strange, dark way, life on Earth has become more stable, more resilient, and more permanent than it ever was in our time. It has anchored itself to the very heart of the planet, severing its reliance on the sky. It has achieved a kind of dark immortality. And in doing so, it has become completely and utterly alien to us. The Earth is no longer our planet. The story of humanity, of mammals, of vertebrates, of photosynthesis, was just one long, elaborate, and ultimately temporary chapter. We tend to see ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the ultimate goal of a 4-billion-year-old process. But this future shows us the profound arrogance of that assumption. Life does not have a goal. It simply has a relentless, amoral drive to continue. When the environment changed, life did not die. It simply shed its old skin, a skin that included us, and continued on its path, mutating into a form we can no longer recognize, in a world we could never call home. This forces us to ask a difficult, deeply personal question. What is the meaning of a world without us in it? We are programmed to see the world through a human lens, to find value and purpose in things we can understand and relate to. But this future Earth, with its iron-shelled snails and heat-seeking predators and its silent, armored king, has no need for our validation. It is a self-contained, meaningful, and complex system that will exist for epochs without ever knowing or caring that we were here. Does a planet's story lose its meaning just because there is no one left to read it? Or is our anthropocentric viewpoint the real illusion? Perhaps the ultimate lesson of the boiling seas is one of cosmic humility. Life, in its purest form, is not about consciousness or intelligence or beauty as we define it. It is about endurance. It endured by becoming something we can no longer recognize. Proves that the end of our world is not, and never will be, the end of the world. It is simply the beginning of the next, terrifying, beautiful chapter. A story written in darkness and heat, for an audience of silent, patient monsters, who now inherit the Earth.